I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to fall for a sob story. I always prided myself on being rational, level-headed, the guy who reads the fine print and never buys extended warranties. But love, or whatever chemicals were short-circuiting my brain at the time, has a way of blurring even the sharpest edges of logic. I met Haley at a leadership seminar in Austin. She stood out, not just because she was beautiful, which she was, but because she carried herself like someone who'd been through hell and made it her resume. Her stories were captivating, just vague enough to feel personal and just dramatic enough to sound true. Childhood trauma, a toxic ex-husband, a business that almost took off before some unfair legal trouble. I won't lie, there was something magnetic about her. The kind of woman who walks into a room and everyone turns, not because she's loud, but because she's already figured out how to make them look. Confidence mixed with just the right dose of brokenness. It felt like gravity disguised as fate. We started talking during a lunch break. I offered her half my sandwich. She said she wasn't hungry but ate the whole thing anyway. It became our inside joke. By the end of the weekend, we'd exchanged numbers, and by the end of the month, she was spending more nights at my place than her own. Things moved fast. Too fast, in retrospect. She talked about how safe she felt with me, how she hadn't trusted anyone in years. I lapped it up like a dog hearing he's a good boy. I was 36, divorced for 2 years, and I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe I finally found someone who gets it. It wasn't until month 4 that she sat me down with tears in her eyes and a manila folder in her hands. "I need to show you something," she said, her voice trembling just enough to sound unrehearsed. Inside the folder was a printed spreadsheet. Credit card debt, student loans, unpaid medical bills, a high-interest loan from a private lender. Altogether, $11,998.22. I remember the number exactly. It's the kind of number you never forget. She explained it all, how her ex ruined her credit, how she was trying to get back on her feet, how she felt humiliated even showing me this. I could see the shame in her eyes, or at least I thought I could. And I did what I'd always done when someone I loved was in pain. I tried to fix it. "I'm not asking you to do anything," she said, wiping a tear. "I just wanted to be honest." But that was a lie. Maybe not in words, but in delivery. Because when I said, "We'll figure it out," she didn't protest. When I offered to help her restructure her debts and refinance what I could under my name, she didn't hesitate. Haley had this way of making you feel like a hero for doing things that were, in hindsight, profoundly stupid. And the crazy part? I wanted to help. I wanted to prove to her, and maybe to myself, that I wasn't like the other men who'd failed her. Within 6 months, I'd paid off her credit cards, helped her settle with 2 collection agencies, and even co-signed a used SUV so she could feel independent again. I paid a financial advisor to put her on a new budget, and I covered most of the therapy bills she couldn't afford but desperately needed. And you know what? For a brief moment it actually felt good. Like I'd done something meaningful, like I was building a future with someone who would never forget what I'd done for her. God, was I naive. But at the time, she kissed me like I was her savior, told me she'd never met a man like me, and swore she'd spend the rest of her life trying to make it up to me. I believed her. I believed every word. Turns out I wasn't the first one. I was just the next. At first, the gratitude felt real. She'd make breakfast some mornings, usually scrambled eggs and avocado toast with that artisanal bread I hated buying but always ended up buying anyway. She'd leave sticky notes on my laptop that said things like, "Thank you for believing in me," or "You make me feel like I deserve a second chance." And I wanted to believe it. I needed to believe it. But something shifted. Not all at once, but gradually, like the slow leak of air from a tire you don't notice until it's too late. She stopped saying thank you. The sticky notes disappeared. So did the eggs. I started coming home to takeout containers, half-eaten sushi rolls, and that glassy-eyed stare she'd give me from the couch while doom-scrolling through TikTok. And the worst part? I kept telling myself it was just a phase. It was around this time that I noticed a new handbag, a designer one. I didn't ask questions. Not yet. Then it was new shoes, then a facial, Then 3 spa treatments billed to my shared credit card. I brought it up cautiously. Hey, I noticed a few charges on the card, just wanted to make sure nothing's being misused. She didn't even look up from her phone. It's fine, she said. I was feeling stressed. You said I needed to take care of myself. That's how it started. She weaponized my kindness. Every prior conversation was suddenly ammunition. Anything I'd said in support became retroactively a blank check. And questioning it? That was suddenly an attack. When I tried to bring it up again, more directly this time, she didn't miss a beat. Wow, she said, folding her arms. So you're keeping score now? I opened my mouth, then shut it. My brain scrambled for the right words, but all I could come up with was, I'm not keeping score, I'm just asking for some balance. She smiled, not a kind smile, the kind you give a waiter who got your order wrong and is too scared to fix it. Real men don't keep score, Matt. That phrase hit like an elbow to the gut, because she didn't say it in frustration. She said it like it was gospel, like she knew it would stick. The words rattled around in my head for weeks. Every time I noticed another expense, every time I caught her in a half-truth or found a new package on the doorstep, that sentence would echo in the background. I stopped confronting her. Not because I agreed, but because I realized something terrifying. I wasn't going to win. Not in the way I thought. She'd built herself a fortress of morality, and any attempt I made to raise concerns was automatically labeled as toxic, insecure, or unmanly. She'd outplayed me, or at least she thought she had. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly imagine, is that while she was out there making passive-aggressive digs and playing house with my finances, I was slowly waking up. I started tracking the charges, I made notes, I pulled statements and downloaded receipts, not because I wanted to win, but because I knew that eventually I'd have to protect myself from the very person I once thought I was protecting. There's something chilling about watching someone morph from partner to parasite, all while smiling at you across the dinner table like everything's fine. And the truth? I don't think Haley ever changed. I think this was the plan all along. They say you don't really know someone until you've said no to them. I learned that the hard way. It was a Friday evening, one of those rare nights when I actually got home before sunset. I'd just wrapped up a nightmare of a client call, and all I wanted was a beer, a quiet couch, and maybe a little company. Haley wasn't home. Not unusual by then. She was reconnecting with friends a lot lately. Friends I'd never met. Friends who, judging by the Instagram tags she never thought I'd find, looked a whole lot like yoga instructors and startup founders in curated outfits. I poured myself a drink and collapsed onto the couch. My phone buzzed. A Venmo request from Haley. Hey babe, need to get the car detailed and fix a dent. $360. No, please. No explanation beyond that single line. I stared at it, thumb hovering, and for the first time, I declined. 25 minutes later, the front door slammed open. She walked in like she'd just discovered I'd cheated, lied, and kicked her dog all at once. Seriously, she snapped, waving her phone. What the hell is this? I kept my voice calm. I just wanted to talk about it first, that's all. Her eyes narrowed. You're unbelievable. You want to talk about 360 after everything I've been through? And there it was. Everything she's been through. That phrase was her shield. Any challenge, any question, any breath that even resembled accountability was instantly deflected by some abstract trauma, some blurry anecdote about how hard life had been before I showed up. Do you have any idea how much I've been dealing with lately? She continued. And now you want to nitpick like some petty little accountant? I should have walked away, should have ended the conversation. But something in me snapped. Not loudly, not violently, just cleanly. I stood up. Haley, I've paid off more than your debt. I've paid for your peace of mind. I just wanted to know what the dent was from. That's not petty. That's normal. Her face twitched, just for a second. And then, like flipping a switch, she softened. Voice low, head tilted. She stepped closer and reached for my hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. You're right. I overreacted. It's just, You know how scared I am of losing control, of being vulnerable." And just like that, the script changed. I wasn't the villain anymore. I was the rescuer again. The strong man who needed to be patient, to hold space, to not keep score. I kissed her on the forehead and said, "Okay," but deep down, I wasn't okay. Later that night, long after she fell asleep beside me in that carefully curated silk robe she got on clearance, price tag still hidden in the bathroom trash, I went into my home office and opened my laptop. I checked her email. Now, before you judge me, I didn't want to. I really didn't. But something had been gnawing at me for weeks. Gut instincts are funny like that. They don't scream. They whisper. And her whisper was getting louder. What I found wasn't explosive. No naked photos. No confessions of love to someone else. Just a forwarded confirmation email from a boutique hotel downtown. 2 nights booked under her name. 1 queen bed, midweek. The same night she told me she'd be staying with her friend Camille because they were doing a wellness cleanse. The email had been forwarded to someone labeled K. No last name, just the letter. Along with the message, "Got us the corner suite. Don't make me do all the planning again." I stared at the screen for a long time, and I didn't feel rage. I felt stupid. All this time, I thought I was the hero. Turns out, I was the backup plan. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I saved the email. I screenshotted it. Then I opened my financial dashboard and started building a spreadsheet. Not to keep score, but to prepare for war. And somewhere between the transaction records, the hotel confirmation, and the fake smiles I'd been swallowing for months, I realized something terrifying. She never loved me. She just loved being rescued. A few days later, I overheard something I was never meant to hear. She was out on the patio, barefoot and pacing, phone pressed to her ear. I had just stepped into the kitchen to grab water when her voice filtered in through the half-open window. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, at least not consciously, but when I heard my name, instinct made me freeze. "Of course I feel bad," she said, laughing softly. "But come on, he was useful. I needed a safety net. I wasn't going to stay with him forever." I stood there, hand clenched around the glass, heart thudding so loud I could barely hear her next words. I mean, I didn't lie to him. I just let him believe whatever he wanted. That's on him, right? That moment, that was the shift. Not the hotel confirmation, not the spreadsheet of charges or the queen-sized betrayal. It was hearing her say, with zero hesitation, that I was never the destination, just a rest stop on her road to better. And suddenly, everything else made sense. I used to think that trust was built through shared experiences, laughing in the car on a late-night drive, splitting pancakes on Sunday mornings, holding each other through the hard stuff. Turns out, trust can also be buried under paperwork. And once you start digging, it gets ugly. After overhearing her phone call on the patio, something in me snapped into full focus. I wasn't just emotionally betrayed, I was logistically betrayed. And that kind of betrayal? It comes with signatures, statements, and fine print. I started going back through everything, every account we'd opened, every loan I'd co-signed, every temporary fix that slowly became a permanent drain. In the beginning, I mentioned I became the co-owner of a used SUV for her. Yeah, that wasn't just a throwaway detail. That decision turned out to be one of the most quietly destructive choices I made during our entire relationship. She said she needed something reliable, something safe. And me? I wanted to be that guy, the man who shows up, the man who says yes when her past only gave her maybes. So I agreed. We went to a dealership, picked out a certified pre-owned Audi Q5. Low mileage, leather seats, all the bells and whistles she didn't really need but said made her feel seen. Her credit was still a wasteland at that point, so I co-signed the loan. Monthly payments? Mine. Insurance? Also mine. Registration and title? Shared, legally speaking. But let's be honest, emotionally, practically, and financially, it was all mine. She drove it every day. I paid for it every month. It became a symbol of something I didn't fully understand at the time, that I was building a life around her, and she was just decorating it with convenience. But the car was just one brick in the wall. The real weight came from the layers of subtle manipulation, the erosion of boundaries dressed up as vulnerability, and the constant gaslighting disguised as empowerment. Because here's the thing about people like Haley. They don't kick down doors. They smile while you open them, and I had opened them all. By the time I started realizing how much of my life was now orbiting around her needs, not ours, it wasn't just about the car, it was about everything. The shared bank account she barely contributed to, the groceries she always forgot to reimburse, the therapy sessions I paid for, and the spa memberships she justified with phrases like emotional maintenance. Every financial choice we made, every subscription, delivery, impulse buy came from my account. But when I finally brought this up, gently, carefully, she hit me with that same tired phrase like a gavel in court. Real men don't keep score. And that was the moment I stopped arguing. Because real men, they might not keep score. But smart men, they know when the game's rigged. There's something oddly empowering about hitting a personal rock bottom. Not the kind people write Instagram captions about, but the kind where you sit in your own living room, in your own house, and realize you no longer recognize your life or yourself in it. That's where I was. I had spent over time bending backwards financially, emotionally, spiritually for someone who treated gratitude like a one-time transaction. And the final straw? It wasn't the car. It wasn't the lies. It wasn't even hearing her say I was never meant to be permanent. It was the smirk she gave me when I asked for some accountability. That little smile like I was a child who just didn't understand how the world worked. That's when something inside me reassembled. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't even going to try to fix it anymore. I was going to plan. I started with the bank. I opened a brand new personal checking account, transferred my direct deposit, cut off the joint card, let her try to order DoorDash with a canceled number. I didn't say a word, just watched the confusion unfold when her little luxuries started bouncing back like unpaid karma. Then came the car. Since we were both legally tied to it, I stopped paying. I called the lender, informed them I was no longer in possession of the vehicle, and let them know where they could find it. I even parked it on the street. No garage, no cover, just a shiny little beacon for repossession. It took about 3 weeks. I'll never forget her face that morning. I was sipping my coffee by the window when the tow truck pulled up. She ran outside in a bathrobe, screaming, pleading, flailing her arms like a woman whose world had just cracked in two. She came storming inside. "You let them take my car?" I didn't even look up from my mug. "Well, I just decided not to keep score anymore, like you asked." She stared at me like she was trying to recognize the man she thought she controlled. And that's when it finally clicked. She didn't fear loss. She feared irrelevance, and me not reacting. That was the biggest threat of all, but I wasn't finished. I pulled every receipt, every financial record, every Venmo transfer, every hotel confirmation she forgot to delete from her email. I built a timeline, a spreadsheet. I had dates, totals, proof. The kind of evidence that doesn't scream in a courtroom. It just whispers to the judge. I didn't tell her I was talking to a lawyer. Didn't tell her I was laying the groundwork. Didn't tell her I had quietly set a trap by simply walking away from the fire and watching who ran after the gasoline. But she must have sensed it, because her tone changed. The edge in her voice dulled. The fake sweetness returned. She made my favorite dinner, told me I was too quiet lately. I just nodded and smiled, because silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy, and for once, she was the one guessing. She thought she was being clever. A week after I stopped paying for everything, Haley decided to make the first move. Legal papers in a crisp white envelope dropped off by some guy in a polo shirt who avoided eye contact when he said, "You've been served." Inside, a petition for divorce, filed under emotional abandonment and financial cruelty. I stared at the pages for a long time. She listed every payment I'd stopped making, every luxury she'd once guilted me into, now framed as a marital obligation. She claimed I withdrew support without warning, that I sabotaged shared assets, and, my personal favorite, that I created a hostile living environment by monitoring her communications. She wasn't filing for closure, she was filing for leverage. Her goal was obvious: play the victim first, control the story, and squeeze out every last dime before the truth caught up to her. Unfortunately for her, the truth was already waiting. My lawyer filed the response within 3 days. Attached? A full financial ledger. Screen-recorded Venmo logs. A copy of the hotel reservation forwarded to Kay. The transcript of her patio phone call. A breakdown of payments made in my name, with timestamps, receipts, and account numbers. And the security cam audio. Crisp, clear, unambiguous. At the preliminary hearing, her attorney tried the usual spin. She was vulnerable. He controlled the finances. She was emotionally isolated. But facts are stubborn things, and so are PDFs with itemized breakdowns and her voice saying, "I wasn't going to stay with him forever." The judge looked from me to her like he was trying to figure out who invited whom to this circus. Then he said the 5 words that nearly made me laugh in the middle of that cold gray courtroom. "You have no legal claim." The ruling? No alimony. No asset redistribution. No settlement. She walked out of that building with nothing but her purse and a face full of disbelief. I walked out lighter, not just financially, psychologically, spiritually. The next day, she sent a flurry of texts, accusations, guilt trips, a long-winded voice message asking if we could talk like adults. I blocked the number. And a week later, I watched from across the street as a moving truck pulled up to the townhouse, my townhouse, and hauled away the last of her things. A mirror, a few bags, some decorative pillows she never paid for. I was sitting outside a little cafe, sipping coffee I could finally afford to enjoy again, when I saw her step out and look around. She didn't notice me. Or maybe she did but decided not to give me the satisfaction. Either way, she looked different now. Smaller, less polished. Like the performance had ended, and the audience had already gone home. I took a slow sip and smiled, not out of spite, but clarity. I finally understood something. Paying off someone's debt doesn't buy their loyalty. It just gives them nicer shoes to walk away in. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to the channel. I wish you a great mood and good luck.